have of any of us here on the panel. Okay, great. Well, with that,
well, thank you guys for your patience. We had a little weather difficulties today, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to introduce Chief Mark Johnson, the Fire Chief for the Fresno County Fire Department and the CAL FIRE Fresno Kings Unit. So, Chief.
Thank you, Daniel. First of all, I'd like to recognize some of the dignitaries we have with us today. We have Mary Alice from Senator Berryhill's office with us, right here, and Micah Petrucci from Assemblyman Bigelow's office with us. We have various Sheriff's Department representatives, local op area chiefs that are with us today. Over the last few months, we've continued to see the impacts of the drought in the Central California area. A couple of weeks ago, unit staff were able to take an administrative flight over eastern Fresno County to observe the impacts of the drought on the vegetation. We have a huge amount of dead and dying vegetation, from pine trees to oak trees to brush. We normally don't see dead this time of year, or any time of year. Conditions here in Central California from the valley floor up to the timber is showing signs that we would normally see towards the end of summer in this area. And it's ripe for fast-moving wildfires. Just 2 days ago, we had 11 fires in Fresno County that required the commitment of over 120 resources, from fire engines to dozers, aircraft, hand crews. And when it requires that kind of commitment, we have to reach out to our cooperators. Many of them are represented here today by their chief officers. Without that cooperation, we have a hard time handling those fires. So I think it speaks very well of the cooperative relationship that we enjoy with the fire departments here in the county. It's now my pleasure to introduce to you the chairman of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors, Debbie Puchigian.
Thank you so very much. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, yesterday in our boardroom, we were so pleased to have Chief Johnson and representatives from CAL FIRE with us as we declared this week in Fresno County Wildfire Awareness Week. And I'm just here to encourage all of our Fresno County residents to do what they can do to help prevent forest fire, for any fires. And it's an interesting thing. I read the statistic that 95% of the wildfires are produced or are caused by people, and it just seems so high to me. But that's a fact, and they can be prevented. So, on behalf of the board, we just encourage everyone in Fresno County. I do represent the eastern part of the county, so I'm doubly pleased to be here today, and we just thank everyone for being here and encourage everyone to adhere to the defensible space numbers and learn more about what they can do to save their property, save their homes, and save lives. Thank you.
well, good afternoon. I'm Ken Pimelot, Director and Chief of CAL FIRE. And Chairman Puchigian, quite frankly, just said what we've been saying throughout the state. And she said it in a very clear, direct way. And that means that the message is getting through and that we have the support from our partners. 95% of fires are started by people. And just as she said, 95% of fires can be prevented because we can work with people through the variety of means that we have to prevent those fire starts. Today is an example of what we've been doing statewide, and it's the reason why we're a bit late this afternoon, is that we've been working our way throughout the state this week as part of Wildfire Awareness Week to get the message out about the conditions that we face in California. And certainly no secret to anybody here on the east side of the valley and in the foothills of the Sierra that we are in the fourth year of a drought. worst drought in the state's history. For 4 years, we've had such limited precipitation. The vegetation is critically dry. And literally just driving up here this afternoon with Chief Johnson, just commenting on just the difference in the condition of the grass here compared to 150 miles north or 200 miles north, even in the foothills of Sacramento, where it is changing and it is becoming dry, but it has been dry here for all of you for weeks and weeks already. We are well ahead of the number of fires to date in the state for this time of year than the average. Over 1,100 fires so far just in the first 4 months of the year. That's over double the number of fires we would normally have for this time of year. Some unprecedented things have gone on in terms of responding to these conditions. The governor fully recognizes the conditions that we face, and for a second year in a row has provided a significant augmentation to CAL FIRE. And this year, again, in an unprecedented fashion, we had 70 fire engines staffed throughout the winter across California. That is not something that is normally done, but we've seen conditions every month in almost every area of the state conducive to fire. So we're taking it very seriously. The state's prepared. It's no accident that all of the partners are here together behind me, because that's how we do it in California. All of the agencies and cooperators, whether it's law enforcement or the fire agencies and other partners working together. But we can't do it alone. And we have to do it in partnership with the residents and homeowners of California. We talk about it every year because the message is so important. It's that what can homeowners do? And for us, it's as simple as that ready, set, go. You go to our website, readyforwildfire.org, and gather that information and see it firsthand. But basically what it means is ready is prepare your home before the fire occurs. Have appropriate and clear address markings so the firefighters can find your home. Clear that defensible space. You will hear this on and on again and again. It's clear that 100 feet, that 30 to 100 foot zone around your house needs to be cleared of flammable vegetation in order to protect your home during a wildland fire. All the guidelines are available for you on Ready for Wildfire. Something that's key though, that's different this year, and is different than the message we've been preaching every year, and it has to do with lawns as part of that defensible space. For years we've talked about a well-manicured, well-maintained watered lawn is a perfect green zone or defensible space to protect your home. But we're not doing lawns anymore. We can't afford in this state to water lawns when communities are barely having water for domestic supplies. Heard the governor say it very loudly and clearly just as late as last night this morning. So since we're not doing lawns, that means we're not going to be maintaining that vegetation and it can dry up. So it's critical that you are removing any of that dead vegetation, lawns or other shrubs, so that they don't add to the fire problem. Again, we're going to do this together, working cooperatively between the fire agencies who are bringing the initial attack, that aggressive response, because the state will continue to be aggressive in its response to the over 200 fires a week that occur at the peak of fire season, so that we can prevent and minimize those fires that escape and become large fires like we've seen in the last several years with the Rim Fire and the King Fire here in the Sierra. With that, I would like to turn over the microphone to Jim Branham. Jim is the Executive Officer for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. The Sierra Nevada Conservancy, under Jim's leadership, is a huge advocate for work in the Sierra to manage fuels and address the fire and the watershed challenges that we face, and a very significant partner with CAL FIRE and the Forest Service in these efforts. So welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you, Chief. It's clear from looking behind me that Supervisor Pachigian and I need uniforms. So next year we'll have some uniforms to wear. So thank you, and thank you to CAL FIRE for providing this opportunity for us. As the Chief said, we're a state organization, a state entity, but a regional organization that focuses on the Sierra Nevada. We focus a lot on forest, fire, and community issues. And just to build on some of the messages that Chief Pimlott delivered, I would argue that what you see behind you represents perhaps the greatest firefighting force in the world right here in California. We're blessed to have CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, and all the other partners, local fire agencies, However, the conditions we're seeing out there with the drought, with overgrown forests and so on, at times can even overwhelm that effort. And I want to talk about a couple of things that we don't maybe talk about as much in this realm, and that is when we do have these events that overwhelm initial attack and burn vast areas with intense fire, we do some pretty horrible things beyond communities and people and all the rest of it. We put a lot of air pollutants into the air. In the San Joaquin Valley, obviously, is an area that deals with some challenges in air quality. The amount of pollutants that are released from these major fires are dramatic. Communities in the Sierra that were in the vicinity of the King Fire had air quality days that exceeded what Beijing, China has on its worst day, which is kind of world renowned for air quality. We also put a lot of greenhouse gases into the air. This state has got a very aggressive campaign on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We spent a lot of money on that. The King Fire and the Rim Fire, Rim Fire of 13 and the King Fire of last year, together released greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to 3.1 million automobiles for a whole year, just 2 fires. So there are some real dramatic impacts when we have these large events. Not to mention the habitat that we work so hard to protect, it goes up in smoke, and the recreational opportunities. And I guess finally the impacts on watersheds. One of the things that follows fires is a lot of erosion. And erosion reduces the storage capacity of our reservoirs, which is going to become more important over time. As you can see, alerts here, we don't have a current storage capacity problem because we're in the middle of the drought. We do have storage. We want to be able to capture that water. As you fill it up from the bottom with sediment after fires, you reduce that capacity. So I think to just join the message in terms of to the public, do everything you can to prevent these. There are multiple benefits that you protect when you do that, and just are seeing the path we're on in this area, having these large, extremely intense fires, and it's not the path we want to be on. So we are working with the U.S. Forest Service, with CAL FIRE, with many partners, and what we call our Watershed Improvement Program, which is really aimed at restoring the health of these forested watersheds. So more to come on that. It's an important effort, and as Chief Pinmont said, it's dependent on the work of a lot of partners, but it seems to us the choice is pretty clear, and the alternative is not acceptable. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Director of Fire and Aviation for the U.S. Forest Service, Region 5, Shauna Lagarza.
Thank you, Jim.
I didn't do that. That was all you.
That's the uniform for the mic, right?
Yeah.
Again, my name is Shauna Lagarza. I'm the Director for Fire and Aviation Management for the U.S. Forest Service. Big thank you to CAL FIRE for having the Forest Service a part of this Wildfire Awareness Week again this year. We were here with you all last year, and a couple things I thought about just as we were driving out to this site, that it's good to be here and to see the real-time problems we have with the drought in this area in California, and to see just the dry vegetation around us. We've been talking about it, and we hear about it a lot, but to come out here and see it firsthand is just great for all of us, including myself. And when I see some of the fire activity, we had just 11 fires a couple days ago here in this county. I think a lot about the firefighters that have been working pretty much nonstop since 2013 in this region. We've had fires pretty much year-round in the central area, in Southern California, even Northern California. So I just always like to really thank the firefighters, and they're the boots on the ground that are doing the hard work out there for us. And so I thank them and their families and emergency services for the work they do. So the U.S. Forest Service has been fully prepared for this wildfire season. Some things we've done a little bit different than we may have not done in the past is we are doing the tree mortality surveys that you've heard about sooner than later. We are mapping areas on the forest where there is water available and where there's not water available. We have activated our prevention and education teams, this interagency teams that travel across the state of California to talk about the 95% of wildfires that are human caused. We knew that there's the vehicle fires and the motor vehicle accidents and then different fires that are human caused. That we need to get the word out to prevent those fires. So the One Less Spark, One Less Wildfire campaign is on the readyforwildfire.org. If you haven't heard about it, read about it. If you have new people who live into your neighborhood, share that information with them so they're aware of that. The last thing I like to talk about is the partnerships and the National Cohesive Strategy is things that you're seeing and happening right here. It's fire-adapted communities, communities that know that they have to be prepared for wildland fires in their area. It's wildland fire responsive, not just from the federal agencies and the state agencies, but local government and volunteers. about how do you make all that happen, it's a pretty complex state, right? So I was thinking about the 3 C's, and that's pretty simple. It's communication, collaboration, and coordination. Communication, collaboration, coordination. If we all do those 3 C's, then we will have a successful year. So thank you very much for your time. It is my pleasure and honor to announce and introduce Chief Dale Hutchison of the Southern Region of Cal Fire.
Thank you, Shauna. I'm Dale Hutchinson. I'm the Southern Region Chief for CAL FIRE. My area basically goes from the Stockton-Monterey area south all the way to the Mexican border. There's been a lot of good information exchanged today about the conditions and the drought, and I just want to touch on a couple of items. The first thing is CAL FIRE is ready to respond to the wildland fire situation right now. As of last Monday, we've got our engines staffed all the way in the southern region. All of our engines are staffed at the first level that we call our transition level, and based on these conditions, that's weeks, almost months earlier than normal. And then on May 18th, we're going to bump up and have additional engines staffed as well. So again, much earlier than normal, but we're getting ready for the season that we're anticipating to be significant. A couple of other things that go around with the drought and the conditions have to do with the work that the folks do when they staff their engines, and that's getting out into the public, doing educational programs, more importantly going out and working with the public and the stakeholders in educating them, and we're doing our defensible space inspections, as was mentioned by Chief Johnson and Chief Hemlock. And that is critical as we move forward into the fire season. But one other aspect we're taking it one step further is we're really concerned about available water sources based on the drought. So all of our resources are going out and surveying the areas, making sure that we're aware of the conditions, aware of the water sources that normally would be there, such as in the rural atmosphere you would have stock ponds or you would have creeks and those type of things. Well, with this going into the 4th year drought, we want to make sure, categorize, make sure we know where those are, where we have access, where we don't. So that's a critical component that we're doing. And also, the other outreach that we're doing is with our stakeholders, not only the fire safe councils and our local government partners and federal partners, but also communities and water districts and things like that. We want to make sure that we understand limitations and impacts to those systems. So when we do have a wildland fire or any fire of that nature, that we can work hand in hand to make sure that we get the water resources we need and we're not impacting communities and their water sources. And that's a critical component. So with that, we really appreciate the work that goes on here in the Fresno region. Having the local government support here behind us and out in the field here really means a lot to me as a fire chief, because we have probably the best mutual aid response in the world in California. We work hard at it, we train at it, we coordinate it, and we do it because we have the opportunities. And this year, let's try to not have the opportunities. Let's try to keep it down as much as we can with our prevention messages. So with that, I'll turn it over to Debbie was going to speak again, or you were completed, and I'll turn it back over to Chief Johnson then for closing remarks and any questions and answers.
So that concludes the news conference. Staff here will be available for any questions, answers that you may have.